Hello, dear friends. This is Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m. We are here to nourish ourselves together, calibrating ourselves with the mind of the Master. Whenever we're talking about Jesus, we are connecting consciously with His governance. Yes, Leon Denis, the book After Death, explains to us that when we put our mind to a specific author or to a person, we're connecting. So whenever we're studying about Jesus, we're willing to practice and train ourselves with His proposal, towards His proposal, we're connecting. It's as if we are entering His Wi-Fi. So that's exactly what we're doing today. We are practicing this conscious connection. As we said yesterday, the sun is up and we would like the sun rays of light really to bathe us, to envelop us in protection, in guidance, right? Sunshine. Welcome, friends. This book, Jesus in the Home, is a treasure. There will be a day that we will ponder more deeply the treasure we have at hands. Nowadays, spiritists are minority in the world, but like the first Christians who were minority back then, they kept on focusing on the now, the present, on their duties without anxieties of the future and without concerns that go beyond our control. I know many people who are spiritists and are very concerned about how spiritism is going to be spread out to the world. Or some have the illusion that they are the ones who control the dissemination. And we would say, if you keep feeling this way, you're not connecting to the mind of the governor, because the governor is in control of it all. There is a whole plan for it, and it has been way before we became spiritists. So we just relax, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show of love from the superior spirits to us. And when they bring these books, they are educating our minds. We need instruction to rid ourselves of ignorance. Knowledge, but we learned yesterday, knowledge without love is like a debilitated bird cannot fly. So we need to balance the two wings and fly steadily. High, not necessarily, because anywhere we fly could be a possibility for us to do the good, right? Today we're studying chapter 10 that is titled The Reformed Judge, and we ask the good spirits, and especially Neio Lucio, the author of this book, Chico Xavier, the medium, to guide us through this journey of feeling these scriptures. Shall we, as if we were in a meeting with our Master Jesus? You ready? Welcome, Felipe. How are you? Nora Brazil, welcome. Melissa, welcome. Lisa Teles, Sol Souza, Alicia Ramos, welcome, welcome. Congratulations, Alicia, in the celebration in the Philippines, in the center there. Sunshine, Lea Severo, welcome. Raquel Bakeshi, Jailton, Chris Anastasian. Thank you, friends, for joining us, and for those who are still entering, welcome. Those who are listening or watching on demand, remember, you're always welcome. Feel it as in the moment, right? Claudia Counter, welcome. Ready? So the gathering is much like the picture, Jesus with the disciples, but in Peter's home, right? So Jesus in the Home, chapter 10, the Reformed Judge. Hi, Teresa Castro. Neio Lucio begins by saying, since during his teaching that day, the Lord had suggested a great deal of caution when passing judgment. The disciples' conversation at Peter's house involved that very issue. Matthew sincerely said, "It's hard not to criticize, because regularly educated people constantly have to voice their opinions as they go about their daily activities." Yes, agreed Andrew openly. It's not easy to do the right thing without analyzing all the details. After listening to a number of statements regarding the right to observe and correct, Jesus intervened unpretentiously. Of course, no one can fulfill the task to which they have been assigned in the divine plan of life unless they keep an eye on the path they are on by following the principles of righteousness. However, we must not incline our mind to the follies of the sentiments, so that we do not fall prey to our own impulses. We will be judged by the same measure that we use on others. Severity is answered with severity, patience with patience, kindness with kindness. Pause. Let's go back to see the non-verbal lessons of Jesus. So first and foremost, he listened to the statements, okay? And he intervened without being pretentious. I think it's so important, this observation by Neio Lucio, that Jesus made his statement without being pretentious. It's fascinating because he is an authority on the earth. He is an authority. He's the governor of the planet. And yet, his humility is such that I feel ashamed. I'm not punishing myself, but I feel ashamed to say, no, wow. Sometimes we're so full of pretentiousness. We make statements without noticing, and we think it's the ultimate truth. And Jesus is tonight teaching us the importance of not criticizing, and especially when he gives this non-verbal lesson. Himself, he shares how the law of God is in that regard, but without that pretentiousness. So that's a lesson for us. Something to observe. The way he spoke. I'm going to read this again so we think about it, okay? After listening to a number of statements regarding the right to observe and correct, Jesus intervened unpretentiously. Surprising, because a master has the right and has the knowledge and the experience. In his case, he's a tutor of all tutors. So for us, it's quite amazing that he's teaching us and teaching with another teaching that he doesn't speak in words. And it's interesting because it matches precisely the lesson that he's telling us. He's talking about when we feel so righteous that we correct others. But when he's explaining it, he's not making that, he's not having that attitude. So you see how perfectly fit is the observation by Neio Lucio. The good spirits do not spare words. They are so good and masterful in their writing that there is a purpose in every word. So that's why translations are very tricky. It requires responsibility and requires conscientiousness, because the good spirits, a word may mean a whole lot more than just a word. Okay? So basically, he's telling us that will be judged by the measure that we use with others. So after a few moments, he continued. Did you see every chapter? Neio Lucio is teaching us how Jesus talks to us. He doesn't come and say, blah, 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 like he's lecturing us. Jesus doesn't lecture anybody. If people say, oh, Jesus lectured, no, not the one that we know. And Neio Lucio is proving to us time and again that he doesn't lecture us. On the contrary, and he always pauses. He makes pauses in between statements. As we've said before, when we're teaching, it's wise to pace out and pause. So, I will make a statement here. In the United States, it's so beautiful when we see Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, the Dalai Lama, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, all these wonderful, and I'm missing a whole lot. Marianne Williamson, in many ways. We have Christine Northrup and others. And you observe, especially Eckhart Tolle, right? Thich Nhat Hanh, the Dalai Lama, that they also use those pauses. It's very interesting. And Jesus used to do it. It's very different from the Latin model way of speaking it, which is more like ministerial, like blah, 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 almost like lecturing, right? Pima Chodron, I love her too. Thank you, Teresa Castro. Hello, Paula. So it's good to put in mind, in our minds, that paced out conversation and the needed pauses is something we need to learn. Exercise number 1 for us. How good are you, or how conscious are you regarding your tone of voice, the rhythm of your conversation, thinking about vibrations? You want to make a test? Put your hand in your chest and start speaking. You're going to start feeling the vibrations in your body. And actually, you're vibrating your body. So then, is it comfortable? Or does it extenuate your body, or extenuate yourself? Is it draining? Or is it soothing, consoling? How is it? Depressing? Aggressive? Do you know how to use pauses, silences? So these are questions for our emotional body language expression, because Jesus is teaching us that time and again, okay? Now, after a few moments, he continued. At the time when Israel was ruled by the great judges, there lived an austere and impetuous judge in the great city of the chosen people. He brought dread and cruelty to all of those who served under his rule. Abusing the powers that had been bestowed upon him, he created tyrannical laws for punishing the smallest infractions. He added a huge number of soldiers, built many prisons, and invented numerous instruments of torture. Stifled by the strange prohibitions, the people lived under a harsh, watchful eye, as though they were just a bunch of unruly animals. They had to work, rest, and worship the Lord at times that were strictly set by the government, or risked being subjected to humiliating punishment in prison and to having to pay all sorts of heavy fines. The judge may have been ruthless, but his subordinates were even more so due to their own innate wickedness. Now, it just so happened that when, in the middle of the night, the judge was on his way to visit one of his sons who was sick. He was taken prisoner without any respect whatsoever by a group of drunk guards who were unaware of the fact that the man they were leading to the dungeon was the very one who had opened it just a few weeks before. It did him no good to tell them who was or to point out the honorable insignias of the office. Believing him to be a dreaded thief, they shackled him, stripped him of his belongings and beat him mercilessly, stating that they were acting in accordance with the instructions of the great judge, who in actuality was him. It was not until the following day that the mistake was right, after the miserable public figure had already suffered the punishment that his authority had established for everyone else. It was only then that the wretched lawgiver saw how dangerous it was to give power to cruel and ignorant subordinates, and he finally realized that constructive and blessed justice is the kind that corrects by helping and educating others in preparation for the kingdom of love amongst all peoples. After that particular event, the city took on a whole new life, because although the reformed judge was still conscientious about his job, he had erected over his court the heart of an understanding and loving father for the good of all. Outside, the stars were shining, portrayed in the serene waters of the large lake. After a long pause, the master concluded, "Only those who have learned a great deal in life through study and service, sweat and tears, as they strive to uphold the good amid the thorns of self-denial and the flowers of love, are fit to carry out justice in the Father's name." Are fit to carry out justice in the Father's name. So, assessment question for us. Do you feel fit to implement justice? And I'm not saying be a judge, be a lawyer, professionally speaking, but many people in their daily lives, they feel like, if I don't control things, things go out of whack. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and employees, bosses. So for us, it is clear, very clear, that we need, for many reasons, we need to be vigilant. Vigilant if we think we are being fair. Kardec, when studying the Spirit's book, when we're studying the Spirit's book by Kardec, he asks, what's the definition of justice? And it says to respect people's rights. So being just means understanding. So he says here clearly that we will be judged according like this judge. He created rules, but he created in a harsh way, just to control, not to educate, not to be constructive, not to help. So Jesus is saying to us, only those who have studied in service. So sometimes many people studied a few books by Spiritism and they already feel like, I know we should be sharing, but they feel like an authority in it. We're no authority, because no matter how hard we try, we're still learning. We're apprentices. We can share, but not pretentiously. And serve, because sometimes we know a lot, but we don't serve. We don't serve. And many people are studying, listening to talks, reading books, but they're not multiplying the talents. So if you don't walk the talk, sharing the good news, and if we don't suffer sweat and tears. I remember Nestor Mazzotti, God bless his heart. He's discarnated. He was the president of the Spiritist Brazilian Federation, and simultaneously he's the founder of the International Spiritist Council, and he was its Secretary General for many years. And I remember once visiting him in 2005 when I was 14 years younger. And he sat down there at a bench in the gardens. We had a break of a seminar. We sat down at a bench of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. He said, Vanessa, you know when you're going to know that you're on the right track in the Spiritist dissemination? When you're beaten up every day. And I was shocked. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, yes, when we do the right, people don't understand. You make a lot of effort, like Jesus is saying, sweat, and there are a lot of tears, because there are misunderstandings. Emmanuel says we should work tirelessly, and not only one, but the whole team. It's a proposal of a Spiritist Center. Kardec says it's work. It's not supposed to be a church service. We go there, do the service, leave. It takes hours of preparation, takes hours of maintenance, and takes hours of debriefing. That's how it is. And if it were easy, everybody would be doing this in the world. But for those who are already awakened, it needs to be done. And people are going to slander, people are going to hurt, people are going to misunderstand. But at the end of the day, that's how it works. And Jesus, like Nestor Mazzotti is saying, he confirms study, service, sweat and tears, thorns. Yes, it's a beautiful work, but there are thorns of our past, of the entities that persecute, of our own imperfections. But we need to forget about ourselves. Selflessness. So if people are oversensitive, and that's one of the things that we cannot forget, oversensitivity. I see many good workers that are lost in oversensitivity because they don't accept correction. They don't accept education. At the minimal proposal of adjustment, they flip, they snap. It's very common. I've seen this over the years. I've seen this in cases after cases that I've listened, reported by colleagues in the Spiritist field, by my family, several generations of people that simply give up beautiful works because somebody asked them something, or they were, whatever it is. It's sad. So we need, as Umberto de Campos says, oversensitivity so bad that it's like you are a tree, but oversensitivity is like a bug. We call it melindre in Portuguese. It's like a bug, tiny one, that eats up the whole tree, destroys it. So are you oversensitive? Are you like, oh, that's why Chico Xavier heard from Emmanuel. Chico, tough skin, crocodile skin. And he was like, what do you mean? He said, don't be too sensitive. If people do XYZ like Nestor Mazzotti told me, that's the way it is. People are going to beat you up. And I remember in a Spiritist meeting, literally, in a Spiritist group, there was a time in which I was sitting down, I was seated, there were several people studying, and not in Virginia, elsewhere. And there was this man who had depression, several problems, and he was talking about a subject, and I was just saying, in Spiritism we say differently. Man, this man was so furious. He stood up to really assault me physically. And I had two friends who actually held him and had to calm him down. So sometimes, even physically, people may assault you. It may happen. Not only spirits. I've seen spirits who threaten us. I'm gonna kill you. I'm going to do this and you're gonna enter an accident, blah, blah, blah. They threaten us, which is normal. But even physical people in the spiritist setting, they may be that aggressive to physically come and attempt against our physical integrity. I've experienced that before, and it's very, very distressing. But it's part of it. Am I going to give up? Say, oh my gosh, these people. I said, you know, it is what it is. Where are we? On Earth. We're not in Jupiter. And on Earth, it's like a psychiatric hospital. People are crazy. And if we're crazy, it's our problem. If they are crazy, that's their problem. So he's saying, in the flowers of love, as we discussed yesterday, the flowers of love, uphold the good amid the thorns of selflessness and the flowers of love. Thorns of self-denial, because it's hard to sacrifice ourselves. It's very hard. But we need to make an effort to forget about ourselves, our needs, and go. Some people say, oh, it's so beautiful that Chico Xavier worked for so many hours. You want to try? No, not me. Not me. So why do you think it's beautiful if you don't want to do it? You need to practice it. Because at the end of the day, sooner or later, you're being called to serve like that. Maybe not in this life, but we need to start practicing. So if your baby wakes you up in the middle of the night, you cannot lock the door of their room and say, whatever, I'm gonna let them cry because I don't want to sacrifice myself. That is cruelty, ignorance, and lack of wisdom, because in that practicing, we're learning to forget about our needs. My need of sleep. If I have to give up temporarily my career to take care of my child, and if that's a possibility financially, then I should do it. And I shouldn't be afraid like, oh my gosh, then I'll never find a job again. But that life is under your care by God. If you do not forget about yourself to take care of their child, you will owe to God great responsibility that was conceded to you. If I am at work and I committed to a certain level in a spiritist center or professional work, and I don't fulfill at my best because nobody does, people are lazy, I'm not gonna work later hours, I'm not gonna do more because nobody does, being mediocre, because that's mediocrity, then I will respond to it. That's the thorn of self-denial and self-love and love towards others. In the book Mechanisms of Mediumship, we learn about it. The rule of connecting to the good is only one. Do the good, or you won't connect to the good. If I ask, what's the Wi-Fi to connect to Jesus? Today Virginia asked me. Of course, she's sleeping now. But she asked us during the day, Mom, what's Jesus' cell phone when he was incarnated? What was his number? And I said, it's a word of 4 letters. Love. That's his number. We can call him. We can call him. We can call him at any time. But to connect, we need to have that love inside of us. Love for God, love for ourselves, and love for others. A multidimensional love. Nowadays we talk about 3D printers and we think, wow. But when we talk about Jesus, he had already brought to us the 3D, multi-D printing in our daily lives, materializing love, materializing kindness, materializing determination and courage. So tonight we're being called to keep on minding our business with the best of our abilities, multiplying the good, connecting to the good, and never stopping. Sowing one seed is not going to generate a good plantation. A good agriculture keeps planting and caring, constantly watching, and constantly sowing to harvest in the best possible way. And that's us. So right now we're going to be invited to say a prayer to calibrate ourselves, allowing people to do what they want to do. But on us, it's to keep studying and serving, sweating, sometimes crying, under the thorns of selflessness and sacrificing ourselves amidst the flower of what? Love. Love is in the air. Everywhere I look around, right? Love is in the air, in every sight, in every sound. And it's up to us to feel it. You want to feel it? Let's feel in a prayer, right? Cláudia Counter, welcome from Rio Grande do Sul. Beautiful. Silvio Otero, big hug to you. Saudades. Shall we, friends? Connect. Prayer. Wi-Fi. Dear Jesus, thank you for the teaching. Thank you for your loving kindness and the efforts through Chico Xavier in bringing to us one more coaching session. We feel more empowered and hopeful that we never give up on shaping ourselves up, refining ourselves, and doing the good. We pray that everyone in our lives feel your loving kindness and open their hearts to the good, and so be it. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you. And tomorrow, as we come back, we're going to talk about the disillusioned saint. Oh my gosh, can a saint be disillusioned? So is he a saint or what? What does he have to do with a saint? Let's come back tomorrow, right? So Souza and friends. And here at Kardec Radio, stories by the master of all masters, nourishing our souls every day at Kardec Radio. Thank you, friends.